I asked you guys for questions and you asked a lot of them, so we are just gonna get right into it. I have a cold if you can't tell, and furthermore, I probably sound different because I got the new iPhone and it has a new adapter. It doesn't use the old chargers. I don't even know the names of these chargers, you guys, but they have changed it again. The microphone that I usually had used does not work with this phone. So I need to get a new adapter, and until then, I have no mic. So this is the phone mic. I will have all of these questions linked below in the description. That way, if you don't want to sit through the whole video and you just want answers to certain questions, then you can go down there and click the link and it'll take you right to that spot in the video. I'm going to start with your questions. I have no idea how long this video is going to take. It's probably going to be a long one because there's a lot of questions. Okay, Jessica asked, how do you get your kids to get along with each other? My 8 and 6-year-old have been in such a grumpy phase with each other lately, and wow, it can be really frustrating. Any tips and strategies? I'm gonna have to admit, I read that and I was like, good question. How do you get your children to get along with each other? On any of this stuff, you guys, I'm just a mom with opinions and I can just say what I've done or what I'm trying to do, but I'm not claiming to have all of the answers to any of this. I'm still in the phase of motherhood just like y'all. So sibling rivalry, sibling arguments, I think is pretty typical. What I have tried to do with my kids from the beginning is emphasize their sibling relationships, meaning I talk to them on a regular basis about these are the people that God said you need in your life forever. Because friends will come and go, but your family was created from the same blood as you. They're going to be in your life most likely till the end. Even if you move away, right? You're going to keep in touch with your family. I just try to tell my kids that one day when they grow up and they have kids of their own, they are going to want their kids to be friends with their siblings' kids, right? Cousins with cousins. And a lot of that does hinge on your relationship with your sibling. And right now, the age gap between 8 and 6, that's only 2 years, but to them, it probably feels like a huge distance. But when you're 18 and 20, it's nothing. I can even say I'm in my 40s now, and I have friends who are still in their 30s and some who are in their 20s. The age gap, the older that you get, it's just not as broad as it is when you are children. You're not going to want something that you did as a child to affect you later down the road, because I know it's hard for kids to comprehend this, but I know in my own life there were things that happened, maybe not in my immediate family, but in my extended family when I was a child, that were never fully reconciled, that did cause trust issues even into adulthood. So there are things that can happen that will affect your relationship down the road. This seems so heavy for kids. They may or may not get it, but I'm just saying, I have these conversations regularly. So maybe I don't have it very extensively when they're 6 and 8 years old, but they've heard bits and pieces of it over and over and over and over and over again. So by the time that they are teenagers, if they are still squabbling with one another, maybe they're starting to comprehend more. And also as teenagers, because I have 2 of them right now, one of the other things that I have been emphasizing, especially to my daughter, is if you start to treat your friends better than you treat your family, we've got a problem. And that means that maybe you're putting too much emphasis on your relationship with your friends when your family is the first relationship that God has given you, that you need to treat well and you need to nourish, because they're going to be your friends for life. God created your siblings to be your best friends. We are also going through the Bible study from Not Consumed. I'll link Not Consumed below, but they have a sibling Bible study. It is a great Bible study to go through with your children, and they have them at various levels. So depending on how old your kids are, you can choose the study package that's appropriate for their age. But it goes through various lessons in sibling relationships in the Bible and how God created this for you and how you can love your siblings to the glory of God. I have never, ever, ever, because I've heard some parents do this. Oh, that's just siblings. They always fight. Sisters always fight. Brothers and sisters always fight. I always address it, because how you treat your family now is how you are going to treat your future family later. How you care for your family now will spill into how you treat your family, meaning your spouse, meaning your future children, meaning maybe your relationship with your siblings into adulthood. It matters. And so I do not let that stuff go. If my kids are fighting, we will address it, make sure proper reconciliation happens. Sometimes you have to be a little hands off and let them work through it, but I am always monitoring it. And I would never, 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 as a parent, just be like, it's just siblings. That's just how they are. That does not fly with me. It's very important that my kids have close relationships with each other so that our future family get-togethers and our future family Christmases, and when they get married and have their kids, that we all want to be together. That's important to Mama, who's already thinking about being a grandparent. I want my kids to want to come home, and I want them to want to be with each other. Sammy, I've noticed the Good and the Beautiful writing isn't the best. Would you recommend I should stop the Good and the Beautiful writing and start IEW, even though it's not the beginning of the school year, or just hold off until next year? This is for my 6th grader. Every time I do the Good and the Beautiful writing workshop, I find myself longing to try IEW. Also, what's your favorite way to do reading and literature? I'm going to first address the reading and the literature one. That's probably my weakest point of my homeschool. But I struggle with holding my kids accountable for various pieces of literature. I struggle with read alouds. I don't know why it's such a struggle with me. I have been looking into McGuffey readers. I had a friend who lent them to me. I may or may not incorporate those or try it next year. I'm going to just be honest. I really struggle with the reading and the literature part. That was one of the things that, like, a curriculum like the Good and the Beautiful who incorporates it for you is nice. And also, you know, when we did classical conversations in their challenge programs, which starts in 7th grade, that they said, here's the novels that we're going to read, one every 3 weeks. And then your child went to class for the discussion. That was nice, because that discussion is very, very difficult for me. That's why I'm going through teaching the classics with my kids, which, okay, we're not through, like, we're going through it so much slower than I thought we would, but it is so good. And my high schooler and my middle schooler are watching these videos with me. And Andrews? I think that's his name. It's not Andrew Pudawa. It's a different Andrew who's teaching the class. But he's teaching it to you. And so I'm learning. My kids are learning along with me. And we've gone through the Paul Revere's Ride poem and done some analysis on that. And then he's using other children's stories coming up. So teaching the classics is a good one if you struggle with literary analysis. Or if your kids are younger, let's see, you had said 6th grader. Because when your kids are younger and you can do read alouds, that's what I would say. If your kids are younger, focus more on read alouds, because I really wish that I would have done that. When I figure out my favorite way to do reading and literature, I'll let you guys know, but it's a struggle for me. I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer for that. Would you switch from the Good and the Beautiful to IEW? Listen, we did this one year. I think I made a video about it, that I was going to not do the Good and the Beautiful writing, and I was going to try to do Brave Writer, We did do some Brave Writer and we did some other stuff, but I didn't do a whole lot of the Good and the Beautiful writing. If you're finding yourself longing to do an IEW writing program, I would say go for it. The one that we're doing this year, the fun, all things fun and fascinating, is very, very doable. That one we're also going slower than I thought we would, but I think it's because there's more lessons per unit than I realized there were. You don't have to finish a curriculum in a year, but very, very bite-sized chunks, meaning if you wanted to supplement the Good and the Beautiful because you like the literature part, you like the geography part, you like the grammar and the art and all that, and maybe you just want to do a writing lesson whenever the Good and the Beautiful prompts you to do a writing lesson, then you can go over to IEW. Very, very doable. All things fun and fascinating would be a great place for you to start. Now that one doesn't have videos, so I don't know if you're thinking the video one. The thing about the IEW video program is the videos are all going to be about a half an hour every time you watch it. Whereas the All Things Fun and Fascinating, when I go through that lesson with my daughters, I don't feel like it takes me that long. So there's a balance there. If you want Andrew Pudawa to teach your child, but it's going to make the lesson longer for your child, or if you want to go through it with your child and kind of learn the techniques along with your child, I think All Things Fun and Fascinating. Have I said that yet? That would be a great place to start. I'll link IEW below also. All right, Elaine says, what is your all-time favorite curriculum to teach? Gosh, that's so hard. I'm one of those people that I feel like I get bored easily. So I might do one curriculum one year and love it, but then the next year comes along and I want something new. So I don't know if I have an all-time favorite curriculum besides like what we do every day for Bible that we've been doing for 6 years. The John MacArthur Bible study that we do, I never get bored of that. Here's how it works in this video, which I will link below if you're curious about it. This is going to seem weird to say. If I had to choose one of my all-time favorite curriculum, I would have to say the Classical Conversations Foundations memory work. That seems really weird for me to say since we no longer do Classical Conversations, but it was so easy because, man, you just popped in the CD, you popped in the memory work, and you played the songs a few times and your kids had it. In fact, one of you asked what one of my favorite homeschool memories is, and it's going to be related to that, but I will wait until that question. All right, Mrs. J, is it Wojo? Mrs. J Wojo or Woyo? Sometimes the J phonetically is yeah. You'll have to tell me. Have you ever felt lonely in your role as a mother, and have you found it hard to make quality friendships as an adult? I have felt this way, but I try to remind myself of Jeremiah 9:24. Yes, I have been lonely as a mother and have found it hard to have quality friendships as an adult. I feel that way all the time. I have a lot of friends, but I feel like I don't have a friend who's like me. My personality is very unique. I guess it's unique. And my interests seem to be so different than many of my friends. Or maybe it's just that phase of life that I feel like I want to do things or go places with girlfriends, and my girlfriends just aren't interested in those things. So being lonely as a mother, that's one of the reasons why, for me as a homeschool mom, why I have joined co-ops in the past, was to meet people. And it's one of the reasons why I ultimately left Classical Conversations, because I didn't have what I needed there. My kids had their needs fulfilled, but I didn't have what I needed. It's a struggle, I think, as a mother, especially because there may be other mothers who feel the same way as you, but maybe they've got a lot of young ones and they just can't get out. They can't pour into an adult friendship because you still have these kids at home that you have to give all your time and energy to, and you have your husband that you need to focus on before you can focus on friendships. So yeah, it can be lonely. the verse Jeremiah 9:24 about boasting in the Lord and in His love. That's definitely one of the realizations that I've had to come to. In fact, I think I made a video about it right here. I'll link it below. This experience in this video where I about had a nervous breakdown. It was my second year of homeschooling, and I was feeling so lonely and so separated from my own friends, and was even creating stories in my head about how nobody loved me. It was an experience where there were some days where it was really difficult for me to get out of bed, and I was breaking down emotionally while I'm trying to homeschool my kids. I've never experienced anything quite like that since. But what I talk about in that video, and I've never made a follow-up video about this book, even though I said I was going to, and it's on my list to still talk about this book because it was a life-changing thing for me. But I was searching on the internet for homeschool moms and depression because I had everything that I thought I ever wanted, and yet I felt so low and so lonely and so isolated and so unloved. And I knew in my head, this isn't right, but I didn't know how to stop feeling this way. And somehow in my Google searches, this book was recommended to me, and it has nothing to do with homeschool moms or depression. And the book was called The Envy of Eve. And I went ahead and got it because I could tell from the summary of the book that it was talking about the root sin. Every root sin starts with envy. And I thought that has got to be what's going on. Like, when I was a working mom, I envied the people I knew who were homeschool moms. I envied those who were stay-at-home moms because that's what I wanted. Well, now I got what I wanted, and I'm still not happy. It's not what I thought. It's not this life of bliss. I mean, what homeschool mom hasn't felt like? It's not quite like The Sound of Music in terms of homeschooling. So I knew that was my problem, was that I'm always looking somewhere else saying, well, that's better. Well, that's better. They've got it better than me. They have what I want. I knew deep down in my heart I'm struggling with envy. And so I got that book, and the book was amazing, and I snapped out of it. And anyway, it's in that video. Ultimately, it's about being content in the Lord, as you say, as you mentioned with that verse, but it's definitely difficult to feel lonely, and we have to keep reminding ourselves that our joy is not found in our circumstances, and we cannot be fulfilled by other people, even though there are so many people who can legitimately bring joy into our life. That is not what our joy should be rooted in. And when we are truly rooted and grounded in the Lord, and we're continually meditating on the goodness of God and being grateful for everything that He is and what He is to us, that's what creates joy. We can also pray for friendships. We can pray that God would bring us somebody. Cast that care on Him. I think of Hannah praying for her son Samuel after years and years and years of being barren and being ridiculed even by her sister wife. She just continued to pray and ask God to fulfill this desire in her, and He answered her prayer. Pray for friends, or pray that He would help you to find your companionship in Him and be satisfied and no longer feel lonely. Okay, Rachel, another Rachel says, I'd like to know more about your co-op. I'd also like to know how you build community for your kids, or do you? We are in a people desert, so to speak. We do have friends, but not a lot, and the same people are at almost everything we do. Okay, so I'd like to know more about your co-op. I come from a part of my state where homeschooling is pretty popular, actually. When I told people almost 10 years ago that I was going to homeschool my kids, I didn't get any hate for it. In fact, I've hardly gotten any of that, but what about socialization? Like, I just don't get that stuff because it's very widely accepted where I am, and most people say, good for you, you're doing the right thing. I mean, I actually get commended for it most of the time. So I'm very fortunate that there have been many trailblazers in my area that have gone before me and already have these co-ops. The co-op that I'm a part of right now is kind of like semi-academic versus kind of fun. So like the classes that my 10-year-old is taking, she's taking a Spanish class. The lady who's teaching that, her husband is actually speaks Spanish. And so she's teaching Spanish. My daughter's second class is a science class that talks about some part of God's creation. So they're watching a video about God's creation and creating the world, and maybe even some Bible verses. It's like a little 10-minute video. And then they're doing some sort of science experiment or some sort of craft that goes along with that. And then their third period is PE. My teenage daughter's classes are a little bit more academic. I haven't actually attended her classes because I'm assigned to my younger daughter's classes. My teenage daughter is going to a biblical worldview class. A man is teaching it, and I'm not sure if he's a pastor or if he's just a dad teaching it about biblical worldview and looking through things going on in our culture and in the news, and talking about what the biblical worldview perspective to that is versus the secular worldview. And then her second class is also a science class, and it's STEM related, where they're given like a challenge with some building materials and some sort of STEM related challenge, like the building bridge with toothpicks and marshmallows, or maybe building a catapult or something like that. And then she's in PE the third hour. So that particular co-op is only every other Monday, and it's up until lunch. Like, we don't eat lunch together. So it starts sometime in the morning and you're done by noon, so you can leave and go have lunch. The Classical Conversations co-op that I've been a part of was once a week, and that was purely academic co-op, although there were fun activities incorporated throughout. But it was once a week, and it was all day depending on the age of your kid. So from preschool, 4 years old, up until third grade, it was only half a day, unless you had older siblings who had afternoon classes, and then they might have like a play period in the afternoon supervised by other mothers. And then there were other academic classes for fourth grade and up through high school. I have to say, Classical Conversations was where I built the most community, which was very helpful when I was a young homeschooling mom, because we were all doing the same curriculum and meeting on a weekly basis. It was a lot easier for me to connect with moms when I didn't know anybody back then, because when I first started homeschooling, I was part of other homeschool co-ops that maybe were mainly for fun, and it felt to me like if you didn't already know moms that were there, they kind of already had their little grouping of moms, and it was kind of hard to get in there. One of the other resources that I would say, like, I go to my state Christian convention. We haven't been faithful to go to it every year, but this past year we went, and then we did some other activities that are, what do you call it? Like our state's Christian homeschool organization organizes. We committed to do more things because we had been to enough of our conventions where we started to recognize people. And this was across the state. I mean, Illinois is a long state. So from Chicago down to the tip of southern Illinois is probably 4 or 5 hours of a drive. So it's quite a significant difference. But we started to recognize people's faces and do some other things outside of the convention. We went to a family camp that they had, so the group was much smaller. My son and I played volleyball for like 5 hours straight one night till like 1 or 1:30 in the morning. It was so much fun. But you get to know people a little bit more intimately when you're doing smaller group things. But your state organization also might have some insight into other groups that maybe you don't know of. Another way So I'm kind of getting into building community for your kids that way. I brought my kids this past year to my convention, and so they met people at the convention. So next year when we go again, and then plus having done the family camp, they're going to have their own friends that they might be excited to see again. Another way that I've built community for my kids, we've done 4-H before. You probably have a 4-H close by. My daughter was part of a sewing club. Like, we had our regular 4-H club, but then there are these little spin-off groups based on specific interests. And so she joined this sewing club, and my son did a robotics club. So where they were programming the EV3 robots, and they even went to a competition. And so got him involved in that. He was a part of a couple different clubs, one that was locally where we live, and then another one. We traveled about a half an hour every Saturday morning for months for him to go to it, but he enjoyed it, met people. I mean, that was also a lot of homeschoolers. So that's the other way, you know, when I talked about when you're part of the community, you start to get to know, you start to see familiar faces over and over, like, hey, you're part of that co-op I was part of, or hey, you were part of 4-H, or you're part of the co-op and 4-H. And then did I mention church? That's probably where my kids' biggest community is, at our church. And we try to get our teens together once a month. Right now we're trying to encourage our teens to reach out to each other, not let your parents always arrange it for you. Just fostering those friendships with people in your own church, because those are those who believe like you. Those are the ones that are almost second. Those are second to your immediate family. You know, when I talked about sibling relationships before being the friendships you're going to have for the rest of your life, I would say your church friendships are second to that, because your church is like-minded, going to believe like you. You're going to be raising, hopefully, your kids in a similar way. So those are the types of friendships and communities I like to foster. Another thing is your local fitness club. Both of my teens have memberships to the gym, and my nieces and nephews also go to that gym, and I know my nieces and nephews have met people in the community at the gym. Our gym also has youth sports leagues, so we've signed our kids up in those little mini sports leagues that last, 5 or 6 weeks of teaching them youth basketball or youth soccer. I signed my daughters up through another local town, one of the bigger cities, a volleyball league we've done for the past 2 years, and they've met girls through that league, but they've also encouraged the girls from their co-ops to join the volleyball league. So now we've got that intertwining again from homeschool co-op into another sports league, which has made their friendships a little deeper. And then we've invited those girls to come to the gym with us too and play volleyball. And then dance class. My daughters have been part of dance, friends through dance class. I mean, sports leagues, 4-H, co-ops, church. Love Pray Sign says, I noticed you don't seem to be using the good and the beautiful this year. Is there a reason? Were you not getting all you desired out of the program, or were you not satisfied? If so, can you share with us your reasons? So I would still say, like, the good and the beautiful science units, if I had to choose a science unit, those would probably still be my favorite science units. It's just that my daughters aren't as into science like they were a couple years ago when we were doing them. And I really do like the Good and the Beautiful Language Arts program. One of the things that I really didn't like, at least my older daughter, she didn't care for the Good and the Beautiful books. I'm sure they were lovely stories. I think that I would have liked books more with titles that I recognized. The incorporating of the geography is fine. I loved the incorporating of the art. I didn't care for the writing and how it taught writing. And so I knew I was going to go with IEW, and so I just decided we're just going to go all in with IEW this year, including the Fix It Grammar, which I really do love the Fix It Grammar, how short and to the disappointed is I have some lesson learned from the Fix It Grammar that I will go over when I do my mid-year update. I think every curriculum probably goes through this, especially on YouTube. If you're a YouTube watcher, I've noticed that some YouTuber will love a curriculum and start talking about it a lot, and then all of a sudden a lot of YouTubers are switching. Have you guys noticed this? There seems to be a bandwagon thing that happens. I think that The Good and the Beautiful was one of those things. I mean, it was recommended to us and we tried it, and I think it's a fantastic curriculum if you're starting out new as a homeschool mom, because it is very much just open and go. So I don't know. I don't really have a good answer, except for that I just decided that I wanted to go back to IEW and I wanted to focus on writing, and I didn't want to have to go through The Good and the Beautiful book and say, not doing this, don't worry about the geography today, no, you don't have to read this literature, no, we're not doing the writing. I mean, I kind of was only using The Good and the Beautiful for the grammar and the art at one point. So I don't have really anything bad to say about The Good and the Beautiful. I say that sincerely. You know, maybe I'll go back to it some year. All right, here's a fun one. Do you decorate for Christmas before or after Thanksgiving? I always try to start decorating before Thanksgiving. The reason is because I tuck her out. And decorating for the holidays for me is more than a one-day thing. I started this when my son was young, and my son, you guys, loves Christmas decorations. And so now he probably would bend to whatever I say, but I know that he would be disappointed if I only put up a tree. He likes the garland on the stairs. He likes the mantle decorated. He likes the Disney Village that I put out. I didn't do it this year. I begged them. I said, please, I need to simplify this year. But he likes having the house decorated. And so I do it for him, and I do it for my younger one. My middle child, she really doesn't care because she doesn't want to help put it up and she doesn't want to help put it down. So she's not going to complain. But because I know it takes effort, I actually try to get the decorations down on the week of Halloween, and I will slowly start putting it up because, you know, you got to check the lights and you got to put the tree up, and then I have to do things to the tree before I let my kids decorate it. But like I don't have a pre-lit tree. I hate pre-lit trees because I had one once and the lights kept going out, and then there was a huge section out, and it was such a headache. We trashed that tree and bought just a regular old tree. But I got to put the lights on it, and I got to put the ribbon in, and then they can put the ornaments and stuff on it. One more thing, and I have all of my decorations done by the weekend before Thanksgiving. The week of Thanksgiving, I'm done. So whatever I didn't get up, I'm not decorating anymore. I gave myself 3 weeks to get done what I could get done, because I also, you know, I'll just do a little bit here and there. It's not like I'm unlikely to take an entire Saturday just to decorate because I have too much going on. Like this year we had volleyball practice on several weeknights, and then on Saturdays we had games, and sometimes those games meant we were gone from the house all morning into the afternoon. So I had limited time on the weekends, so it was like 3 weeks, whatever you can get done, you get done. Do you take your Christmas decor down before New Year's Day? No. It's definitely still up after New Year's. Probably the earliest that I'll take it down is the weekend after New Year's. So like if New Year's is on a Monday, I'm still not touching it probably until that Friday or Saturday. I have in the past, like when I had more Christmas spirit, when I wasn't a homeschool mom with a humongous to-do list, I have left it up all January before, which drives my husband batty. Not anymore though. It's usually down the week after. White Christmas or It's a Wonderful Life. That is so tough. I love both of those movies, but I'm going to have to choose It's a Wonderful Life. I like White Christmas for the music because and the dancing. I do love the dancing too. And I love the thought of that inn. I would love to go away to an inn like that with like the vaudeville style shows. I wish they still had things like that. But I love It's a Wonderful Life for the storyline. I cry every time. You know how the movie theaters will sometimes play those old movies in the theater on the big screen? I love doing that too. There's several theaters around here that do it. I've seen Christmas in Connecticut on the big screen. I have seen White Christmas and It's a Wonderful Life on the big screen. Oh, Holiday Inn. I don't think I've ever seen Holiday Inn on the big screen yet, but I do. I like that one too. Favorite Bible study for kids, for adults? Any books you recommend to grow spiritually? How do you handle negative feedback on your channel? Does it bother you? That's a lot of questions. User BN7DG. Favorite Bible study? Well, I mentioned the John MacArthur one that I talked about here. That's definitely my favorite Bible study for kids because it's very thorough. And even though that one, like the website would say that one's geared for kids, I want to say it's like up to 12. But our teenagers, like my son, his Sunday school teacher is teaching him through that, and they just go more in depth. You can always go deeper. We have gone through, it's a 3-year cycle, and we've gone through it 3 times now. Or we're on our 3rd time, I can't remember. We've gone through it a lot. And I am getting something new out of it every single time. And I'm an adult who's been saved since I was a child. Favorite Bible study for adults? Most of the Bible studies that we go through are with our church. And I will say our church has done a Bible study called Behold Your God. I'll link it below, which goes into depth about who God is. That was really good. I think the author is Jerry Bridges. We've gone through several of his books. Most recent one was on humility. And then I told you I mentioned that book earlier in this video called The Envy of Eve. One of the books that for real transformed me and how I view myself, which is what we should be doing, right? We should be examining ourselves, especially when we start having thoughts, negative thoughts, especially negative thoughts about other people. We should be saying, whoa, 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 whoa. What am I to learn from this? And what is my sin in these thoughts? John MacArthur did a really good sermon once called The Sins of the Mind. Another book to grow spiritually, I have to say, I'm going through the book, again, a lot slower than I thought we would, but the Speak Truth book by Sarah Malley that I've been reading with my daughter has been provoking, to say the least. It's a book. I'm going slower because I want to make sure that I take time to talk about it with my daughter, but I would have read the whole book by now for sure, because going through it, I was just like, wow. Going through the journal with the book is so good. Helps you think through what it is you're reading and how you can apply it to yourself and the things that maybe you need to challenge yourself with. Like, for example, I think it was one of the 2nd chapter, she talked about why we need to memorize scripture. So anyway, Speak Truth, Sarah Malley is a great one. Jerry Bridges' book. John MacArthur books are all going to be really good if you want to get into some really deep, like, think about things that you've probably never thought about before in terms of spiritual things. I don't know if this is a recent book that he's written, but it just came across my social media. I'll have to put a picture of it up here if I'm wrong, but something like 40 Amazing Women of the Bible. I really want to get that book and read it, because I can imagine he's going to take women that maybe there's very little written on, like Mary, Martha's sister, or Mary Magdalene, and just go into great depth about them and thinking about things regarding what the Bible says about them and their character that we've never thought of before. That would be provoking, especially since we're women. That's one of those books that's going on my wish list. How do you handle negative feedback on your channel? Honestly, I don't get a whole lot of negative feedback. I have gotten some comments, and maybe I don't consider it negative feedback because I genuinely am a thick-skinned person. Especially if you're not personally a part of my life, you're just a person out there who doesn't know me personally, then you don't hold a lot of credibility with me in the first place. So you can say negative things about me or about what I believe, because I definitely get those. When I do the spiritual videos where I'm sharing more of my beliefs, I almost always get 1 or 2 comments on there with people telling me like not to indoctrinate my kids or whatever. Most of the time, those comments just make me smile because you guys, the world is lost. So that's not me, that's them. I've never gotten any negative feedback about like my presentation. Most of the time it's just people who have different opinions than me, and they can have different opinions. I can't think of one comment that I've ever gotten though that's upset me. It just hasn't happened. If my dad watched one of my videos and had something negative to say, that would upset me. Because he's a part of my life and he's somebody whose opinion I genuinely care about. That's weird to say because you guys, I am so thankful for you, but I think you know what I mean. Like, I don't know you personally, so if you have a tiff with me or you have a difference of opinion, it's not going to affect me the same way as if somebody in my everyday life is going to hurt my feelings. So if you have feedback or suggestions, I'm not afraid of it. I've worked in the corporate world before, you guys. I've gotten negative feedback from people that I work with. It's a part of life. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with feedback. I can grow from it. Okay, so this is from Nicole, homeschooling with the Riveras. What are your best homeschooling memories and moments? What are the worst? The difference between raising boys versus girls. Your favorite activities, hobbies, interests, things you do for fun. My best homeschooling memories and moments. There are so many, but I have to say the best memories are when the kids really are excited about what it is that you're learning and they're really engaged and they're into it. That probably, for me, happened a little bit more when they were younger. Younger kids tend to be a little bit more enthusiastic about many, many things. My 10-year-old is still very enthusiastic about a lot of things. Like today, we started our Christmas unit from Campfire curriculum, and there was an excerpt in there from Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. And as soon as I didn't even finish lesson 1 because it felt like it was taking a while. So I said, we're going to pause here. We'll finish it tomorrow. But she went upstairs and grabbed the Christmas Carol picture book and wanted to read it to us. Those moments are fun. And speaking of reading aloud, I have done the Read Aloud Revival January challenge where they challenge your kids to read. I think are they reading aloud 10 minutes a day, or are they just reading in general? Now I can't remember it. But the way that we did it was I had my kids pick a picture book and they read aloud to everybody for 10 minutes. That was fun. I love picture books, and I miss the age where your kids are sitting on your lap reading picture books with you. My 10-year-old, again, still likes picture books. My teens maybe aren't into them as much anymore. My favorite memory, okay, so I mentioned Classical Conversations memory work. This is probably one of my all-time favorite memories. My youngest was 3 years old, so she wasn't even going to Classical Conversations with us at that time, but every time we got into our minivan, I would pop in the memory work because we had a CD player at that time. And so wherever we went for that week, we were doing that week's memory work. So she was still learning a lot of the songs with. And one night I was putting her to bed and she had a t-shirt on. It was a Disney t-shirt from the Aristocats movie. And the kitty cat on the shirt was Marie, the little white kitten. And she was admiring her shirt. She probably had the stuffed animal with her too. And she goes, "I love Aristocats, Mommy. And the guillotine. The guillotine, you guys, from the French Revolution, when they cut off all the heads of the aristocrats." She said, "I love Aristocats and the guillotine," because there is a CC memory work song. It says, "In 1789, the French Revolution began, when citizens stormed the Bastille and fought for the Declaration of the Rights of Man. Later, during the Reign of Terror, aristocrats' heads were removed by the guillotine. That's literally how the song went. So classical conversations, they create these little tunes. That right there was jam-packed with facts, as you can tell. 1789, French Revolution, Bastille fighting for the rights of man, Reign of Terror, aristocrats' heads removed by the guillotine. There's like 5 big facts from that little tune, and that was my 3-year-old's favorite song. And I bet you if I asked her today, 10 years old, what happened in 1979, she'd probably still remember that song. But my kids actually still remember a lot of CC memory work songs. That's why I said it might be one of my favorite curriculums, just because those songs and retaining them in your head, the song to memory is effective. And then I, of course, love our memories that we've had with any of the co-ops that we've been a part of, because it's always nice to have community. And I love going on nature walks. I love going on hikes. I love being able to drop everything for the day and go on a field trip or just go to the park or whatever. I just love being at home with my kids. I think you guys can relate. When I brought home my son from the hospital, like, being a mother was all I ever wanted from childhood. It was really the only thing I knew for sure I wanted to be when I grew up, was a mother. So even on the hardest days homeschooling, I cannot imagine, I'm gonna cry. I cannot imagine being anywhere else and doing anything else, because there is no more important work than what we are doing here at home. And the hardest days are going to be forgotten. And when we're old and we're grandmothers, we're going to look back on homeschooling and we're only going to remember all of the happy times. And your kids are only going to remember that. They may even fight against homeschooling now and may talk about going to school or wanting to do this and that and the other thing. They are going to look back fondly on all this time that they had at home. Okay, our family video says, and you planned all along for college and your senior says, nope, I'm done. You've talked about the whys and your child still says, nope, I have no desire to sit and do any schoolwork. This kind of got cut off, and I did ask. I said, I'm confused, what's the question? But I'm going to guess that maybe you're asking, what do you do when they have no plans anymore and they're not sure what they want to do and they just don't want to do any work anymore? I feel like this is a whole other video that I might end up doing about how to help your child figure out their path in life, because it's definitely something that I'm navigating right now with my high schooler. We're halfway through his 11th grade year, so a year and a half left, maybe, because I have thrown out to him about being a 5th-year senior. There's nothing that says you have to graduate high school in 4 years. Like, if you don't care, I don't care. Why do you need to know what you're going to do the rest of your life when you're 18? Maybe you don't know and you just need more time to explore. So I feel like this could be a video, but there are state requirements. So I would tell my child that, first of all, you have to do work because the state requires it, and this is what we're doing. But if they don't know that they want to go to college and they don't know what they want to do, what are they interested in? And does that include skills that might translate into a career later? Those are the things to explore. I really do think this is going to be a video soon, because there's too much for me to say about it right now, and this video is going to be very long if I get too deeply into it. But just be patient and maybe give them even a say in the curriculum that they're using. You don't have to do biology for science. What other sciences might interest them? Just think outside the box. What about a finance class rather than a math class? Instead of a history class, how about an economics class? How about instead of maybe a science class, maybe give them a project? Like, I'm literally telling you guys things that I've already mentioned in past videos, so forgive me, but have them start a business. What kind of business could they start? A window washing business, maybe a house washing business. Maybe they could learn to detail cars and they could go around your neighborhood and get some business. Maybe they could bake cookies, go around your neighborhood, give people samples, and then take some orders. I mean, there's all kinds of businesses that your kid could start just to learn kind of how to budget for expenses, how to build in your profit. Lawn mowing could be your business, how to bid lawn work. So anyway, I said that will probably be a video soon. What is your family's, okay, now I'm on my Instagram questions. Darby, what is your family's favorite recipe? I actually made a video about it. It's this rotisserie chicken noodle soup. It is the one recipe, the one family meal that we make that everybody in my family loves, and start to finish it probably takes me less than a half an hour, and it is full of flavor. So this is it right here, and I will link it below. What's one of the most memorable homeschool moments you've had so far? I think I answered that with Nicole's question, but I want to add though too, like my most memorable homeschool moments is always this time of year with Christmas schooling, because even though I might have plans to continue some academics, I have to say a lot of times I am so much more relaxed after Thanksgiving through Christmas, because Christmas can be stressful anyway with all the things that mom has to do, and I want to have fun with my kids. So I always try to pick out a fun Christmas unit and plan activities, especially involving movies. Just enjoy the season, enjoy the fun picture books, enjoy crafting. Like I was thinking, what's wrong with just doing your Christmas unit and just enjoying some crafts together? Oh, you know what I forgot to mention? I skipped over some of Nicole's questions. I'm gonna have to go back because she mentioned what are some of your hobbies and things you do for fun. I enjoy crafts. I don't have time for them though, but I like making things with my hands. I used to be a scrapbooker once upon a time. I see things on social media all the time for fun watercolors. I would love to learn to watercolor. I made friendship bracelets with my daughters recently. I actually really enjoyed that. But like making Christmas ornaments, making homemade Christmas garlands and all that is so intriguing. It's like something that speaks to me. I want to do. I want to learn to embroider. There's all kinds of things I want to learn to do. So going back to Nicole's question, your favorite activities, hobbies, interests. I also mentioned from the family camp volleyball. I love volleyball. I was in competitive volleyball leagues up until I had my son. Now that my daughters are in volleyball and I have taken them to the gym and work on certain skills and pulled some games together to play, those skills don't go away, guys. I'm still a decent volleyball player if I do say so myself, and it just makes me want to play more. I love volleyball and can play it for hours. Worst homeschool moments, Nicole asked. My worst moments all have to do with me. Those depression times early on in the year where I was curled up in my bed and can't get out and can't function. I feel so guilty when that happens, when you need a mental health day. And I feel like sometimes there are some years where there's a lot of them. So guys, don't feel bad if you struggle and have hard days. It happens to the best of us. The other thing, worst homeschool memories. I am one of those where if I have a conflict going on in my life, it's hard for me to switch that off and focus on what I need to do with my kids. Really, really hard, and it affects my mood, and I wish that it didn't. But thankfully, where I am weak, the Lord is strong, and where I fail, He is sufficient, and my kids are resilient, and thank goodness they can do some things on their own. And also, thank goodness for all the resources out there, documentaries, YouTube videos where they can learn from there, because sometimes mama needs it. Difference between raising boys versus girls. That one's kind of hard for me because I don't know if my son is typical. He's pretty chill. My son was never a rambunctious child. He rarely ever got holes in his jeans. He was always very, very careful and very cautious. Whereas my second child, which was a girl, her clothes were ruined all the time. She's like no fear, doesn't think through things, And so she's a little scarier to me. So I don't know if it's a difference between boys and girls. I will say as teenagers, my daughter's a lot louder. My son doesn't really talk back. He's not difficult at all. And I know teenage boys who are. So I don't know if I'm the best person to ask the difference between boys and girls. Sometimes maybe it's just personalities. It's not even necessarily boys and girls. For me, it's the difference between first and second child and personality differences. I'm really lucky with the son that I have. He has not been a challenge at all. He doesn't ask for anything. I mean, like, we'll ask him, what do you want for Christmas? And he doesn't know. He just doesn't think like that. He just is content. He likes hanging out with his family. He does what we ask. He needs to work on expressing himself. Everybody in his life will say that. But girls are dramatic. My girls are expensive. They have expensive taste. They're prone to marketing. So they're watching a YouTube video and a YouTube ad comes on saying the latest and greatest thing you need. They're always coming to tell me the latest and greatest thing that they need. So, maybe they need to read that book, The Envy of Eve, and understand the lust that dwells within them. Okay, back to Darby. She says, best advice for moms of young children. I read this question to my husband, but I mentioned this to my husband and I was like, what advice would you give to moms of young children? And we both said consistency while they're young. Consistent with discipline, consistent, they like structure, they like schedules. That was something very hard for me because like I told you guys, I get bored easily. I like to mix things up. That was a struggle for my son who likes to know what's coming and what's next, and he likes routine. Consistency with discipline though, including picking up your toys. Like I am the first to say you don't live in a museum, so don't stress if you didn't get the dusting done this week. But teaching your kids to pick up after themselves is not too much to ask. And the younger that you start with that, it will pay off in dividends later. The more disciplined and on top of bad attitudes, talking back, whining when they're younger, it will pay off for you later. Because I will say, we let some of those things slip through the year, especially the more kids that you add. It's easier in some ways to ignore it or maybe not even notice it as much because you got so many kids whining. But we have noticed that things that we're dealing with now as teenagers, I'm like, oh, if I would have just been more consistent about that when they were younger, I wouldn't be dealing with this now. I was just saying, my oldest son is very disciplined. He's very chill. And he was one of those children that I was very consistent with about all those things. And it has paid off for me. My daughters, maybe I wasn't as consistent with, and I'm paying for them now. And then the other thing about with young moms with young kids, I did a whole video about this, okay? This mom guilt video has some of these things in it. Of course, this is geared towards homeschooling. I wish that I would have read more to my kids. I was a working mom when my kids were young, and so I would come home from work and I would get dinner and I would be tired and helping my son with his schoolwork, but I didn't read very consistently before bedtime. I didn't read picture books when my kids were even toddlers as much as I wish that I would have. I wish that I would have just read stories and kept that imagination ignited in them because, now I have 2 teens and they don't want me to read aloud to them. I mean, maybe a little bit, but not like they did when they were younger. And so I wish that I would have read more. Favorite family game. We have so many favorite family games. That one is really hard to answer. We like Azul, Blockus. I love Blockus. There's this card game that we play that you can play with a large group called Swoosh. I think it's called Swoosh or Swoop. I can't explain it here, but there are instructions on YouTube if you want to learn how to play Swoop or Swoosh, whatever it's called. When we're in a large group, we love the game Telestrations, where you have a word like, what's the word? Raining cats and dogs or something like that. And you have to draw raining cats and dogs with a dry erase marker, and then you hand your booklet to the next person. They're looking at your drawing, trying to figure out what you drew, and they write the word. And then they pass it to the next person, and that person sees what they wrote and draws the picture. So everybody has their own little book, so you're constantly being passed these books. It's like the game of telephone with drawing. It is so much fun to see how things were interpreted, and most of the time, what it ends up coming back to you was not what your word was, and it's hilarious to see the drawings and to see the interpretations. But that is one of the most fun party games. What will you do when you're all done homeschooling? I have all kinds of dreams and aspirations. I have all kinds of ideas for curriculums, like maybe writing my own unit studies, maybe writing a book about homeschooling, and going down the route like Heidi St. John and having my own podcast. Or maybe I'll be a grandmother and I'll just be at home and help homeschool my children's children. So I don't know. I don't plan too far ahead because honestly, I hope I'm in heaven. What direction are your kiddos going after high school? I don't know. We're trying to figure that out. And I mentioned with somebody else's question about their high schooler that this could be a whole video trying to figure out how to guide your children into whatever it is their future is. I have a lot to say about that. My son is starting to hone in what it is he thinks he wants to do. And so I don't want to say too much because I know I'm either going to talk about it in my mid-year curriculum review or in a video about how to help your kids. I don't see my teenage daughter going to college, but she's only 14, so who knows, a lot can change in a couple years. So I don't know. Okay, here's a fun one. Miss Carrie Lynn says, how can I get my hair as nice and thick as yours? I have to say I have been genetically blessed with very thick and nice hair, and I really don't do a whole lot to it. I don't even wash it every day. I probably wash it every 4 or 5 days unless I've really sweated a lot in it. So my hair is trained not to get, because you can train your hair to not get oily. So my hair is trained, it doesn't get oily until maybe day 4 or 5. I use a curling iron, a high quality curling iron, Paul Mitchell, if I curl my hair, that is. I use a Paul Mitchell curling iron. I use Paul Mitchell shampoo, so that's salon quality. And when I wash my hair at night, I wash it at night and I let it air dry on my pillow. So I lay on my pillow like this, and that helps my hair not get frizzy. I do not blow dry my hair. So I was just born with it. I do have, my hair's not straight, and it's also not curly. It has some curls underneath, and it's naturally wavy, so that also helps. And then she suggested L'Oreal Voluminous because I was talking on Instagram about the eyelash filter, doing way more for my eyelashes than my mascara. I think I have used L'Oreal Voluminous. I've also used Lash Paradise, which is decent, especially if you put the primer on first and then the Lash Paradise on top. Currently, I'm using Maybelline Lash Sensation, I think, which isn't bad either. I do not spend a lot of money on makeup because I would rather spend my money on quality shoes and vacations. Renewed Freedom in Jesus says, what is a daily schedule for a first grader? How much table time work? I think when my youngest was in first grade, she could have all of her schoolwork done in probably an hour and a half to 2 hours. We always did all of our Bible study together. I did her language arts with her, which was usually half an hour. I did her math with her, which was definitely not more than a half an hour. And then she did handwriting, which was probably maybe 10 or 15 minutes. If we did science together, we usually did science as a family and history, so maybe she would sit there for read alouds and stuff, maybe an art project if there was some of that left over, but definitely for table time work, just not a lot. I mean, if you're just sticking to language arts and math, those two things could be done in an hour for sure, maybe a little bit more than an hour. And then any other activities, science, history, art that you might want to add into it, 2 hours tops for all of it, I would say. Have breaks in there and have recess. Oh my goodness, my sunlight. Okay, last question. Do you ever struggle with the question, is this enough with curriculum? I am lately. Katie Jones is asking. Of course I struggle with, is this enough? And what I'm always telling myself is, we're asking ourselves, is it enough, because of what the world is telling us. But I keep reminding myself, be diligent in what you're asked to do, but really it is about home. It's about being home with your kids and having an environment in which they can thrive, because they are going to learn what they're interested in. They are going to learn what they're meant to do. I promise. Here's what I know for sure, and I did a video about it, and I'm going to put it right here for you guys to follow. Curriculum does not matter. Homeschool. Home matters more than school. Check out this video right here. Home matters more. I hope you guys enjoyed. Until next time, bye.